Hey everybody, welcome back. Happy Friday. And if you haven't watched the first two episodes of this series of Cup of Coffee, I recommend it. They're on my channel, just go look. But yeah, this is episode 3. Today I'm going to be talking about how I got my first developer job. So yeah, let's dive right in. I left off in my last video talking about how I decided to go and learn on Free Code Camp because I read that it was a free resource, which I was broke at the time, so very appealing. And I read that it was, very comprehensive, that I'd learn everything I needed to know to get started building my first projects. And so, they still had their legacy curriculum at the time that you're watching this, so it's most of the same stuff that the first two I think it's the first two, maybe the first 3 certifications on their new curriculum teach, but I learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, maybe some jQuery, I don't remember. They might have taken some of the content down, but the first 2 months after I started on December 5th, 2017, I was just like every single day, just basically treating it like a full-time job whenever I wasn't running shipped grocery deliveries, or doing some other thing. There wasn't a lot going on in my life at the time, so it was pretty conducive to spending time learning every day. But after the first couple of months of learning, I ended up having to take a break because my life got really busy. I met I met the girl who's now my wife back in March 14th was when we started talking. And around the same time, I had picked up 2 part-time jobs and eventually a third. So there were 4 months where I just was like, nope, I don't have energy for this. I don't have time. By the time I came back to it that summer, Free Code Camp had dropped a new curriculum, and I just looked on their website now to confirm. They actually updated the responsive web design certification that I originally got to be a more project-based learning, but it's still mostly the same content. But I ended up going through the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript stuff all over again before even starting on learning React, which was their 3rd certification that they have now for front-end development. And I actually ended up deviating from the platform to go over to Scrimba.com because I liked their React content better. And actually I used what I learned there to build the Free Code Camp projects that were required for the certification. So if you're just starting out, I highly recommend going to Free Code Camp and to Scrimba. They both have amazing content, very different teaching styles, but when used together, they can be pretty powerful. So anyways, this is how I started building my first projects. This is how I built my first portfolio website. My first portfolio website was actually really, really crappy, but I mean, everyone's is, I think. If yours wasn't, shut up, I don't want to hear about it. I don't really have design instinct, and so most of the stuff I made at the beginning and stuff I make now still is pretty basic looking, but I don't know, it's good enough for me, and apparently good enough to help me get a decent job eventually. But yeah, after I finished learning the first HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, after I built my first website, and after I had some of my Free Code Camp projects and scripting algorithm challenge solutions posted up on my website, I started applying for jobs right away, actually, because I had read enough to learn that you never know where employers expect you to be for the job that they're posting. They might not be looking for someone who has 5 years of experience. They might just be looking for a junior developer who has a willingness to learn and a proven ability to build stuff, and teach themselves new stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I workshopped my resume. I started practicing writing cover letters for these types of jobs. And yeah, I watched a lot of YouTube content on, and like read a lot of blog posts on like writing a really good resume that sticks out to a human reader, but also can pass ATS checks, which I forget what that stands for, but basically it's the robot that's like looking for certain keywords in your resume, deciding whether or not you get to pass the gatekeeper's check, I suppose you could call it. But yeah, I started applying really, really early, and I got no bites for the first, yeah, I want to say the first year. But in 2019, after I had like started learning React and building some of those projects, even though they were really basic React projects, I actually got a couple of interviews. And I want to say that this is in part thanks to me starting to work with a recruiter. So I know recruiters can get a bad rap, but I 100% recommend, if you're starting out and you have no network yet, just start working with a tech recruiter, because you don't have to pay them. It's not like a paid service. They make money when you get a job. So it's definitely a win-win scenario, as long as you're working on yourself to make yourself more competitive every month that you're working with them, and they can see that. They're going to go to bat for you, and try to help you get past gatekeepers, or I don't want to say gatekeepers anymore, get past like HR and hiring managers that may not consider you a traditionally competitive candidate. So it's a really good resource to have. Don't rely 100% on recruiters. I didn't. I was applying to tons of jobs while I was working with a recruiter, with the opportunities they had available, and I honestly like triple dipped. I was working with like 3 different recruiters at one point. But this is fine. Like, the important thing with working with recruiters, and maybe I could just make another video on this, but high level would be just be open and communicative. Make sure that they know what your job application status is. Like, are you on the market? Did you get an interview somewhere that they aren't helping you with? Did you get a job already? Like, just be open and honest, and like, as soon as you know something, tell them, because that builds the trust in the relationship, and they're going to end up offering you more positions, versus the other guy who barely texts back. So yeah, it's cool. You can start to feel like you're collaborating in the developer space if you're working with recruiters. And I mean, if you meet engineers other places, like, talk to them about your goals. Like, I met a few people in the course of my job search that were happy to hear me out and give me some advice on what to learn next. And yeah, I don't know, like, one thing I wish I did more in retrospect was just immersing myself more in the community. I did challenges like 100 Days of Code, and I tracked my progress on Twitter. So that's another thing you might consider. That ended up providing me with, it's essentially a portfolio piece. If I link out to my Twitter and, mention that I'm doing the 100 Days of Code challenge, that looks really impressive to employers. And I actually, once I got into my first tech company in a support role, when I was talking to the engineering manager, they thought it was a pretty cool thing that I was doing. So it's not nothing. Like, you just use whatever you can, I suppose. So yeah, like a year on Free Code Camp, applying for jobs, working on my resume, doing 100 Days of Code. Yeah, still no bites until I learned React. But then after that, working with a recruiter, I got one whiteboarding interview, and I got one whiteboarding interview on my own as well. And so yeah, I don't like whiteboarding interviews. They're very nerve-wracking, but it's something you just have to accept as part of the industry. Like there's going to be all these people posting about how, oh, we shouldn't have whiteboarding interviews, or like don't waste the candidate's time. It's like, sure, in an ideal world, yes, but you get what you get. Don't throw a fit. Like if the job you're really trying to get needs you to pass a whiteboarding interview, get good. So I actually failed my first two whiteboarding interviews, so maybe you shouldn't be listening to me. But the first one was actually React, like the recruiter helped me get. It was a React form exercise, and they wanted me to just create the markup on a whiteboard of like a controlled form in React, and that was really hard for me at the time. And I guess if I had had Google, maybe I could have whipped something up, because I had actually made that in a project before. But yeah, that's why you practice on a whiteboard for a whiteboard interview. And then the other one that I did was like this insane data structures and algorithms question that asked me to traverse a binary tree with like infinite depth, and I still don't know how to do that. Like, I'll be honest, I never really gave a shit. I didn't learn it later, and so far it has not bitten me in the butt, like, yet, I guess I should say. But yeah, there's a lot of these exercises that are purely like leet code, and there's not really much value to be had from them, except for the occasional time in your career where you'll actually need to use it. But when that time comes, you're just gonna learn it at that point. So I don't know. Take that for what you will. I'm not saying leet code's bad. I didn't use it really to get my first job. Actually, what happened was 2 years in, I finally just I kind of just like threw in the towel on just getting in the door as a developer, because I realized that like this is taking a long time, and I've already learned a lot of stuff. I can already build projects, and it's still not good enough. So maybe it's just that I didn't want to get like deep enough into the knowledge base to become competitive. But I thought, what would be easier is just leveraging my customer service skills to get into a tech company, because I'm ultra competitive in that area now that I have like web developer skills, and I have already many years of customer service. So I'm kind of like the dream candidate. I understand the user experience. I understand like what goes into making an application. And so it'll be easier for me to spot, like real issues customers are writing in about, versus like knowing whether or not it's just probably user error. And so that ended up working out for me. I got my first job working at Fetch Rewards, which is like this receipt scanning app. I got that job back in October 2019, and working in that job for a little bit taught me a lot about some of the technologies that support teams at tech companies use, so like Zendesk, and then the fact that they use a lot of internally made dashboards, usually because every business has their own specific use cases. It taught me a lot about the user experience, actually, and how to think like a user, and the kinds of crazy things that users encounter in an app that you probably just won't ever encounter yourself. And then trying to think more about, well, is it because of the device they're using? Is it the operating system version? Is it like, what is it? And so a lot of problem solving, working through many things, like not juggling really, but learning to kind of like go quickly through issues and like collect data for developers to go and fix an issue that actually is a bug. And I guess, yeah, I don't know, just it was a good experience that informed what came later, which like at the time this company they had a QA team and it was one person. And then in, let's see, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 months later, they hired a QA manager who is now like definitely one of my favorite people ever that I've ever met, and he helped me grow my career a lot. But yeah, spoiler alert, I guess. I ended up moving over to QA with consent from my support manager, because she was definitely a major catalyst for my career growth. Like, not all managers are excellent, but the ones that are will propel you to like heights that you couldn't have gone to by yourself. And she definitely cared more about growing her people than she did about keeping them in her department. And that's the best thing a manager can do, honestly. Managers should want people to grow beyond them, not just under them. So that's what she did. She's like, hey, we got this guy. He's got some developer skills. Maybe that'll be good for QA. Yeah, I guess that the knowledge of the QA manager coming into the company came up before I actually got a chat with the QA manager. And in the meantime, I was trying to get into like any software engineering role that I could. They didn't have any front-end developers at the company yet, so that wasn't an option. Like no front-end engineering department or any interest in one. And then so I saw that they had a back-end developer internship, and I thought that maybe I'd apply for that, and my manager had encouraged me to, and I almost did it. I had taken a Node.js course the year prior, and so I was a little rusty, but because I didn't really use it for anything after I took it, which is a mistake. Don't do that. Always build something after a course, but I actually ended up forgetting the package.json file, and if you know what that means, then you know that that's a very stupid mistake to make, and yes, it was, and yes, I know, and yeah, I failed it. I failed the interview because they couldn't run my interview project on their machine, and I couldn't tell them why, and I couldn't fix it. Even though my algorithm worked. I will always say that because it did, but that doesn't matter at the end of the day. And so that was a valuable lesson for me, but they told me to go try QA, and so that kind of just sealed it for me. And after a chat and interview with the whole team, this was right around when the pandemic hit, so my team interview was like on Zoom. They decided, hey, let's give this guy a shot. What the hell? And fast forward a year and a month, I had already built the team this React app that lets them create a fake receipt on the screen and take a picture of it with the phone, which sped up their testing quite a bit, because at the time they didn't have anything like that. They were still having to go shopping in order to get a receipt if they wanted something more complicated than what could be generated by this really rudimentary HTML jQuery app that was developed by one of the Android developers over a weekend. But see, that's the benefit of learning modern tools like React. Like you learn that there are better ways to do things, and so if you ever walk into a company and they're using a tool that seems outdated to you, or like you have this developer skill set, and even if you're not working as a developer, you might be able to convince them to let you build something better for them, because why wouldn't they want that, right? I had actually built that tool only a couple of months into my QA role there, and this was manual QA, by the way, so like they didn't expect me to develop anything. Like my job was not to write code, but that ended up resulting in me getting a raise early on, just that same year, and then it positioned me uniquely among the very small QA team for one of the upcoming QA automation opportunities in the department, because they didn't have automation when I started. But a year later, they had already hired a lead automation engineer in QA, and he was looking for the first people to come over from manual to start learning automation. And there were already like a couple of coworkers before me that had shown interest, and so they were in line first, and one of them was the one who had been there for 3 years, and so they went first. But then I was like immediately after them. I had I was the only one on the team without a computer science degree. I was the only one on the team who had web developer experience, and all of this positioned me uniquely because, I wouldn't say the computer science thing helped me. That probably didn't help, but it didn't hurt either. So if you're worried about getting a degree, it's not always important. So I would just say work on your skill set more than getting certificates or pieces of paper in place of that. But anyways, eventually it was my turn, and so a year and a month after I started in manual QA, I crossed over to automation QA, and that was the first job that I ever got paid to write code. And I think that was February 14th, 2021, I want to say. So it took me about 2 years, 2017, 2021. It was like, let's see, math. Yeah, it was like 3 years and a couple of months that it took me from the first day I started learning web development to the first day I got paid to write code. And, fast forward another year, I'll just give a quick blurb about this. I had a 6-month front-end engineering apprenticeship at the company because I had already proven that I could write good code, and I had proven that I had web developer skills that I could apply to the company, the React app that I made in QA. And so, everything counts, guys. Just fucking build stuff and show it to people. And it's going to give you opportunities that you didn't even know existed yet. They didn't have a front-end engineering department when I built that React app, but because I built it, and they saw that when they came in, they saw that, maybe this person actually would be good as an apprentice. So you never know what opportunities are going to come in the future. So what I've learned is just build stuff, show it to people, and make sure that you keep improving on it, because it shows maturity as a developer, being able to see where there are holes in quality in your projects. But that's my little soapbox there. But long story short, after this apprenticeship, I had gone through kind of 2 different areas of web stuff. I had looked at I had done some web scraping work, which was entirely new to me, but it's very similar to QA automation, because you're still accessing elements on a web page. The only difference is you're gathering data instead of testing the data against expected values that you're looking for. So that was the first half, and the second half, they had me try to build work on some web applications, full stack dashboard applications, and a website. Actually, the website was the first part. So there were 3 different types of projects I was working on, learning Svelte.js and TypeScript to work on a modern, high performance website that would be customer facing or client facing, and then the web scraping on websites like Target.com, and then writing login scripts, which was pretty cool to see that work, and then lastly was like the web application stuff, which was honestly the hardest for me because I'm not a full stack developer, at least not comfortably. I could probably hack out a project if I needed to, but I've avoided the back end side of things and the data fetching stuff a lot, and so that's not really my forte. And yeah, ultimately that infrastructure side of things, like the DevOps stuff, like making CI/CD pipelines, setting up the basic architecture for a project, that stuff kind of drove me away from wanting to finish the apprenticeship. I ended up quitting midway because I felt like the skills that I would need to learn in order to be successful at Fetch Rewards as a front-end engineer were skills I just wasn't ready to learn yet. I just didn't feel comfortable doing it, and I mean, I kind of wussed out, but I don't know. I think at that point I was already getting burnt out at the company for other reasons. And I actually, that was this year. Nope, it's 2023 now, but June of 2022 was actually when I ducked out of the apprenticeship and went back to QA automation. And I only spent up until November after that, and then I left for my current company, Trek Bicycle, which, yeah, that's fun. I can't say anything about what I'm working on, but it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely more challenging than the last role I was in. But, you know, if it weren't for the last role in QA automation, I would be very much sucking at this job. So, yeah, it's having a great team is worth its weight in gold. A great supportive team that helps you learn, that encourages you to learn stuff, that helps you learn that stuff when you get stuck. And that's what I had at Fetch Rewards. And honestly, that's what I have here, except I'm just more like, I'm the only QA automation person on my team, but there are other QA automation engineers in the company doing other projects that have been happy to, you know, help me out and guide me. So yeah, anyways, yeah, it took me about 3 years to get my first coding job in QA automation, and that opportunity actually led me to being able to try out web development. Ultimately decided that wasn't for me, but it was still a really good experience. It taught me that I can learn unit testing, even though I had avoided that for a long time too. It taught me I could learn another JavaScript framework. It taught me I could do web scraping. Yeah, honestly, it just showed me like what else is out there that I hadn't bothered to go learn myself, and it gave me some confidence that I could pick up hard things that I didn't really consider myself good enough to learn. And that mindset, like that confidence, has followed me to this company, to Trek, and it's helping a lot here because I'm having to do a lot of new things that haven't really been done by many other people before. So yeah, anyways, I guess I can wrap this. I think tomorrow I'll make a video on marketing yourself as a developer. I kind of covered some things already here, but I can go deeper on it tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend, everyone.